So at some point, plan A is going to fail you. It just is.
Great.
Maybe there are a few people for whom it doesn't, but when you let go of plan A, when you mourn it and grieve it a little bit and say, well, it didn't go that way, that's when you get to the sort of window of your mind where you can be open to plan B. And I think that by the time you get to a ripe old age of 49, like I'm on plan X. And being willing to call it plan X and to say, it's not what I designed, and I'm also disappointed and sad about those other ideas that I had for my life, is also the jumping off point to be able to be like joyful about plan X and excited about what is to come.
That's Jessi Hempel, host of the Hello Monday podcast, and Gianna Prudenti, LinkedIn's early career development editor. I'm Leah Smart, and this is Everyday Better. Don't forget to hit that follow button to get new episodes of our show every week. And make sure to follow me on LinkedIn, where I dive deeper into the evidence-backed strategies mentioned in that week's show. If you're already following me on LinkedIn, follow me on Instagram for a behind-the-scenes look at how we make this show. I'm at Leah_smart. That's Leah_smart. And we'll also include a link in the show notes. Hey everyone, from LinkedIn News, I'm Leah Smart, and this is Everyday Better, a personal development podcast where every week I sit down with some of the world's brightest minds and bravest hearts who use science and story to share strategies for how we can flourish individually, in relationship to others, and to the world around us. As regular listeners of the show will know, I recently gave birth to my first baby, a girl. And as I adjust to my new life as a mom, my lovely producers, Grace and Emily, are helping me out. I'm going to let them take over for just a couple minutes, and then I will be back with you for the rest of the show.
So here at Everyday Better, every Monday we meet as a team, and we talk about possible guests for the show. We talk about topics we want to cover and questions we have. And for so many months last year, one topic kept coming up again and again in these meetings. And that topic is mentorship. If you're a longtime listener of the show, you've probably heard Leah share her story of making a major career change in her late 20s. And as she navigated the twists and turns of that pivot, the guidance and wisdom that she got from the people around her was so important. And she also discovered during this period of her life that the most valuable mentorship often comes from the people you wouldn't expect. During informal conversations, casual ones you didn't have planned. And she wanted to talk about that on the show.
So as producers, we set out to find the perfect guest. But no one was feeling quite right. We didn't want to hear an expert talking about mentorship. We wanted to eavesdrop in on a conversation that felt messy and raw, like a real career feels. We realized that the perfect person to have this conversation with was actually two people. Leah's colleagues, the ones she shares knowledge with and who support each other at work. So we invited Leah's informal mentor, Jessi Hempel, and her informal mentee, Gianna Prudenti, to join us on the show. When we brought Jessi, Leah, and Gianna together, we imagined a conversation about the how-tos of mentorship. What makes a great mentor, and how do you find one? But what emerged was actually something much more interesting, because each of them are in a completely different season of their career. So they sat around and mentored each other as they opened up about the biggest challenges and questions they're facing at work right now.
So for Jessi, who's a senior editor at large at LinkedIn and the host of our sister podcast, Hello Monday, her big challenge is around reevaluating how work fits into a meaningful life and learning to embrace the surprising places her career has taken her. Then there's Leah, who, after settling into her role post-career pivot, is now entering her mid-career, and at the time of this recording was preparing for the profound transition of becoming a working mom. And Gianna, an editor who writes about early career development here at LinkedIn, she brings us the perspective of someone who's actively navigating a lot of the challenges you confront early in your career, like learning to set boundaries, celebrate wins, and just figure out what's next.
This conversation is a reminder that mentorship is more than a formal program at your company. True mentorship unfolds in conversations just like this one, where you can open up about your fears, dreams, and the challenges you face at work and at home. And it's a reminder that we don't need to face these struggles alone. Here's Leah, Jessi, and Gianna.
Okay, so before we start, no one's heard, well, some people may have heard your voice on my show, but no one's heard your voice on my show yet. So I'd love for you both to introduce yourselves. Tell me who you are. Give me one thing you just want to say about yourself.
I am Jessi Hempel. I am the host of Hello Monday, the Hello Monday podcast. I am firmly a Gen Xer. That is how I see the world. I'm 49 years old, staring down the barrel of 50. I'm working through all the things that happened right about then. 2 small kids, they're 3 and 6. Means I sleep through the night, but I don't sleep enough. That's me.
I'm Gianna Prudenti. I am 25. I'm Gen Z. I'm in this really weird post-grad I guess I can't say that anymore. I'm 3 years post-grad, so now I'm just like, what's next? I have been at LinkedIn for all 3 of those years, reporting on and for Gen Z through my newsletter and all my content. And something you should know about me is that I love to bake. Food is my love language, and one day I want to be a chef.
And every time you bake for me, it's amazing. So thank you. And please keep
you.
it coming, even though we don't sit together.
Of course. I'll come down to your floor.
I'm also laughing about the fact that your first statement was, I am firmly a Gen Xer. And I'm like, have you recently embraced this? Like, is this a new thing?
I think we're always reaching for youth in a work setting, right? We're always reaching to be younger than we are, to be in touch with what is younger than we are, to embrace and celebrate what is younger than we are. And I have recently come to terms with the fact that the thing that's worth celebrating in my life is that I am exactly where I am. So, Gen X.
Love it.
You wouldn't know anything about that, right, Leah? Because
I know nothing about it. And you called me a geriatric millennial the other day, and I was firmly offended. I was like, absolutely not. My husband is geriatric. I am not. Moving right along. But I totally agree with that. I was
Wait, how old are you? We just said
yeah, we were.
I'm Leah. I'm 36. I'm a very stark in the middle millennial. And I have tried wearing wide jeans, and my husband's
Guys, the best Slack messages.
I'm not a Gen Zer, and I need to just let it go. And so I love your point about embracing what is.
No,
and
I love it.
It's been really tough for me. But
my favorite Slack messages from Leah are when she's like, "What are the kids wearing? Like, how do I style these cargo pants?" I'm like, "Yes, let's talk."
Meanwhile, my wife is like, "You can't wear white tennis shoes. They don't look like they're supposed to on
Stop.
you. You are not 30 years old."
You totally can with the frilly socks, like I told
Gianna,
you.
I'm gonna give you her number.
I'm ready. I'll go to bat.
bring back skinny jeans.
No.
I'm on that page.
Okay,
I'm
just
on
to bring
page.
us back to the thing that we have in common, we all are wearing kind of a version of the same thing right now, which is sort of what corporate culture does to you, right? It puts you all together and says, y'all are going to be kind of the same.
Uniform. Yeah,
we blend.
So if we talk about where we are, as much as I love this conversation, talking about where we are in our generations, the point of this conversation is like we are each in very different places in our career. We're each starkly in different generations with similar jobs. And I want to know from both of you, like if you were to give it, you can give it an actual season or you can give it like a name. But if you were to think about what season you're in right now in your career, what would you say? Jessi, I'll have you go.
I went first last time.
Okay, fine. I'll have Gianna go.
Oh my God. I was like, thank God she was like,
I need
time to think. What season am I in? I think I'm in a weird, like, in between. Like, I landed the job. I'm in it for 3 years. This is amazing. And I'm somebody who's always chasing the next thing. And I'm like, wait, I could like be here for a while. So what do I do? I feel settled, but in a good way.
Oh, I was going to ask,
like
is it uncomfortable?
Not in like a plateauing type of way, but I'm not comfortable with like being still. So it's something I'm just trying to learn.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, right? Like you go to school, you start kindergarten, they're like, this is first grade, this is middle school, this is high school, now you're going to go to college, now you get a job. And then I guess you're where you are.
Yeah. It's like, wow, there's like 40 years of this.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Jessi?
Well, I'll bring to you where I am and also sort of what I'm wrestling with personally, right? I've been working, like at my first job, absent the paper route, my first job when I was like 16 years old. And I have been working consistently and hard since then. So for many, many decades. And I am really thinking a lot about how I value my time and figuring out how to separate how I value my time from how I make money and make sure for myself that I'm not measuring my self-worth by my productivity, which is an economic means of measurement, right? And it took me until now to kind of figure that out, but that is what this season has been for me. And I think actually it might be something that is reflective of what a lot of people in my season of life are reviewing. I've worked so hard. What is it all for? And what has it given me? And here's the thing. I've had a great career. That is not coming out of hardship. I really love my job. I love what I get to do every day. But I've had a lot of ups and downs by this point. I've had more than 3 years in my career. I've been laid off from jobs. I've even been fired from my first job. I have loved jobs that didn't love me back. I have struggled with imposter syndrome. I have changed industries and changed careers. And so, yeah, I'm happy with my day job right now, but I'm trying to figure out how to put the day job in the context of larger life and whether I'm happy in that larger life.
Wow. First of all, have we discussed paper routes? Because I also had one.
Did you?
At 11.
Me too. I was
Oh my
11.
God,
I was
get
11. I had 6 houses.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I had a whole little village called Montclair.
Wait,
near
guys,
my-
I have no idea what we're talking about.
Our paper route assignments, obviously.
Oh, what?
So we both delivered papers.
Oh,
like little
newspapers.
newspapers.
They were like,
I don't know if you've
they
heard
were
of those, Gen Zer.
Right. You put them in a big
we
bag.
were saying ROOTS, not
No.
roots.
I am so
Like,
old that I had the
sorry.
afternoon paper route, and an afternoon paper was not something you probably needed by the time
That's
you
what
got
I
here.
was too. I was
Really?
after school.
Well, there
I
you
would
go.
take it to the little village and I would get candy at some of the candy shops. It was the best thing ever. Like you, I've loved working since I was like a child. You know, it's funny. When I thought about what season I was in, I was on the train and I was like, where am I? And I was doing it by seasons. I'm like fascinated by people who kind of like spend time thinking about like, what is this asking of me now? I actually feel kind of like you. Like, I feel like I'm in that like really, you know, when it snows and it's really quiet, like really quiet. That's how I feel about my career right now. Like, and not in a negative way. It's really just like a stillness. It's like a quiet, like, I don't really know what's coming. I mean, for a number of reasons, personally and professionally, but it's also like this, I don't know, I'm imagining like when you walk outside, I take my dog out in the morning when it snowed and she loves the snow and it's like every footprint's a new footprint, like no one else has been where you are. And so I think of it maybe like that I'm sort of in like this winter stillness that's not negative, but like you, it's really uncomfortable to be still.
Well, you're also, Leah, gearing up for a pretty profound life change. Not the kind of change that happens many times over the course of a lifetime.
Right. Just to even wrap my mind around the fact that since I was 22 years old, it's been all about me and like my career and where I wanted to live and what I wanted to do. And because I love, and I think all of us love working and love our careers and want to be able to establish and create really meaningful careers if we haven't already, it's like, it's hard to even comprehend the idea that I'll be gone from work for a long time, but also that like this new human's going to enter my life and make me think differently about everything. So it's a little uncertain in the sense that like it's the first time I've had to actually go, oh my God, what if it's not the center of my universe anymore? In fact, I'm pretty sure it won't be.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. This is me refraining from laying in on all of the things that I have learned because I have lived it. Because one thing that is true about becoming a parent is that it's profoundly different for everybody. And so you can draw from other people's experiences, but at the end of the day, you will venture forth on your own and experience it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very TBD. And I think it's also forcing me, and I feel like you'll resonate with this, Gianna, to get more comfortable with a lot of uncertainty. And that's really hard. Yeah. I am not comfortable with that. I am the person who's like on Sunday night talking to my husband being like, what days should the dogs be walked? What days will we be home? And he's like, can we just play it by ear? And I'm like, no, we will immediately do this and do this now. And like, I think that this new challenge is going to force me to look at things differently and to just open up and go, okay, Like, what's coming and how am I going to deal with it in the moment versus worrying about the future or thinking about the past? It feels like it's a very present moment experience, staring at Jessi asking because you have 2 children.
Well, I was going to say that time management would actually be extremely effective. I wish that I were better at that or that kind of person, because when you have other people to plan for in your home, it's really helpful to sit down on Sunday and figure out what the week is about.
Okay, great.
So
Lean in.
that's going to work out for you.
So, Jessi, I want to talk to you about or hear more about this idea of like self-worth and productivity, because I think it's so common for anyone to associate their sense of worth with where they are in their job, how productive they are, how much money they make, what title they got, what recent promotion they got, how relevant they are in their org or their industry. It's kind of like what you described earlier. It's a continuation of school, right?
Yes.
We go from going, okay, I'm as good as my grades to I'm as good as my job. So in your season where you are now, how do you think about success?
Well, so I'm going to answer that with the story.
Sure.
Over the weekend, it was the marathon here in New York City, which is so fun. And one of the people in my wife's friend circle was running the marathon, and probably a dozen friends came into town. And we all got to catch up, which was so fun. We hadn't seen each other. And I had this long conversation with this woman who was 47 years old. And she worked for a big international corporation, the name of which you would know and you would be like, whoa, that is cool. And she also is a mom of a couple of awesome kids, and she and her partner have a great relationship, and they have built enough of a life now that they have enough money that they actually even have a second home and a ski home, and like their life like works really beautifully. And she was lamenting that at work she's been passed over for a promotion during a reorg, which puts her in a place where 2 things have happened. Her peers are all 29 years old, and she's managing. Like, nobody doesn't want her there, but she's doing a job that many people younger than her are doing. And she's having to come to terms with the fact that probably what she envisioned for her career at this point, it's not going to look like that. And it's tearing her up, and it's a mess. And I think that holding that tension is a very familiar experience for women in the second part of their 40s and into their 50s. You get to the point where your career doesn't look like what you thought it would, if it ever did. And maybe you're making enough money, and maybe you like what you do. But you have to let go of plan A in order to be able to appreciate it and truly like design and think about the life that you want. And that is a perspective that I hear in different forms all the time on my show. It is definitely a perspective that I have lived. I think a lot about this idea of plan A. I don't know, Gianna, maybe you're still in plan A. Plan A seems to be working really well for you.
That checks out.
I don't know. I feel like this is honestly like not my version of plan A, but
Right.
But plan A.
Plan A, right?
Yeah.
So at some point, plan A is going to fail you. It just is.
Great.
Maybe there are a few people for whom it doesn't, but you know, when you let go of plan A, when you mourn it and grieve it a little bit and say, well, it didn't go that way, that's when you get to the sort of window of your mind where you can be open to plan B. And I think that by the time you get to a ripe old age of 49, like I'm on plan X. And being willing to call it plan X and to say, it's not what I designed, and I'm also disappointed and sad about those other ideas that I had for my life, is also the jumping off point to be able to be like joyful about plan X and excited about what is to come. So that is the sea I'm swirling in. I don't know. How does that sound to you, Leah?
I mean, gosh. Yes. I mean, yeah, I've been through, I was thinking as you were talking, multiple plan A's that didn't work.
Yeah.
I'm probably on plan F right now, you know, like I'm like, but it has become plan A, and I wouldn't trade it for the plan A from 22 years old, but it wasn't the original plan. And so, yeah, I think there's like a rewriting, and I really like appreciate you saying like at some point it will fail you, because I'm like, oof, yeah, that's being with that disappointment is really tough.
Yeah.
You know, but then that's what opens you up to like, okay, this didn't work out. Like, what do I really want now? Like, I think that's the perfect time to ask yourself questions like that. What does it mean to be successful now? Like adding now to those questions is like, ooh, I can get with that.
And we get very binary about it. We're like, well, it didn't work out that way. Maybe it'll work out okay this way. But if we are willing to let go of the binary nature of plan A versus plan X or plan Q and simply open ourselves up to what is possible, you may eventually find that you're very, very glad that plan A did not work out.
Oh, God, yes. Gianna, what's your version of success right now? I want to know that first.
Well, as Jessi was talking, I was thinking about how I recently realized how efficiency obsessed I am. Like, always somebody who's so on the go, and every hour of my day needs to be maximized. Like, I don't know how to, I'm obsessed with productivity. And if I do something and it ended up being a wasted effort in my eyes, then I wasted time. That was just, I could have spent that hour doing something else.
Sounds like you beat yourself up about that a little.
Yeah. Because I want to be able to slow down more. I've always been caught up in like the job, the title, the company, always with the tangible thing that I was achieving. And I've always been someone, like I was saying before, I feel I'm in this season of stillness, but I'm still toiling in my head with what's next? Should I do this? Should I do that? Like, there's so many opportunities out there that I'm almost so overwhelmed by it. I could never even make a choice. So I've always thought that way. When I look back, it was get into the school, get the job, then you get the job. Okay, well, what was next? And for me, the podcast came along recently, and that was a tangible thing I was working toward. That happened. It was incredible. And then again, it was what's next. And when I started building the podcast, I realized it brought out a lot of my strengths, but it showed me the blind spots that I had been ignoring and revealed a lot of personal things that I can improve. And I started looking at goals on a less of a big scale and thinking, oh, there's so many self-improvement things I can do that will make me a better human and make me a better worker. It doesn't need to be this big thing that I'm chasing all the time, right? Like, there's so many things that I know I can improve that will help me get to the next goal whenever that, shows itself. But knowing that there's not some big thing I'm working toward right now, being okay with that and taking a step back and saying on a smaller scale, what can I improve to feel like I'm succeeding?
So you're taking like smaller steps. And actually, I wanted to ask you about the podcast. This was something you wanted for a while. I talked to you about it for, I feel like, a long time.
Yeah.
And then it happened. I think one of the things that happens in our careers is we have this idea that we'll just chase what we love and then all things will just come true. Like, what was it like? Because this is so recent for you, going from this place of dreaming of this big thing to getting it.
Well, I'm always somebody who does not celebrate. Like, you get the thing, okay, what's next? Like, immediately. It's just always been that way. And I actually stopped for the first time and was like, no, I'm going to celebrate this. This was huge. And I, got all my friends together and we really did celebrate the moment. And it made me so warm inside to feel supported and to actually be like, yeah, this happened. I worked hard for it. And it is so fulfilling. But then it's the other side of like, oh, wow, I realized in that journey I was facing, imposter syndrome. I had so much self-doubt. And it's like these things just start coming up and you think, oh, I don't have that. Like, I'm ready. Like, I've been wanting this. I must be ready. And then it happens and you're like, okay, wow. When I now look back on that journey, I'm like, there was a lot of ups and downs to get to what I wanted. And it all still happened. But I think the journey itself was really revealing. And I feel like I've spoken to you, Leah, a lot about this. Like, when you achieve something, the goalpost just moves. And you're like, yeah, it's more in the journey, right, than the actual destination.
Yeah, which is so hard to remember.
Yeah.
I totally resonate with you. I think me being in this job, we're all in similar roles. I didn't come out of college going, oh, this was plan A. So like I said, this is plan F. And I got here and didn't even imagine that this would be possible and had this total experience of like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. And then I experienced things that I thought I wouldn't experience because I had gotten the dream job, like imposter syndrome. And before we go into that, because I do want to know more about how both of you have experienced this, but we're all a little bit different in the way we got to this work. How did you get here? When did you know you wanted to be an editor, a writer, a podcast host? there were no podcasts when we were 10 years old. So you wanted to be some version of someone who talked and told people things and interviewed people. How did you guys figure this out? And Jessi, we'll start with you.
Well, I always knew I wanted to be a writer. In the third grade, I won the school writing contest for an essay I wrote about wanting to be an ice skater based on my athletic abilities. It was really best that I went for writing over ice skating. But it was really inherent to how I saw myself and how I was rewarded early in my life. And when I came out of college, my thought was the thing I care most about is writing, and journalism is a path to get there and be paid for it. And so I became a business journalist, and I spent 15 years doing that, and I loved that until the moment when I was bored of it. And it was funny, ironically, and this happens for a lot of people, I think, in whatever their craft is. At just the moment that I was getting the most public acclaim for what I did, I was a senior writer at Wired. All of the big tech founders and CEOs wanted to talk to me. I could pretty much have any access I wanted and write anything I wanted. And I couldn't do it one more moment. I was burnt out. It was so stale. And around that point was when the opportunity at LinkedIn came up to host a podcast.
Wow. I mean, you knew you wanted to be a writer since you were a kid, right? It's like when I think of people I've known as a kid who were like, oh, I'm going to be a doctor, and they really did it.
Yeah.
I'm like, God, how cool. Like you just came out of the womb and you were like, I'm ready to go post ice skating, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, after I was done with ice skating.
And paper route.
Y'all, I've never even been on ice skates. I don't know what I was thinking. But yeah,
There's so much to unpack.
It is the great gift of my life that I came out with a sense of purpose around craft, right? Even with all this podcasting is just a path to storytelling and has a huge writing component to it.
Well, you mentioned boredom, but I'm curious more before the boredom, did you ever experience, because you've had this craft in your mind and your heart for so long, did you ever experience imposter syndrome?
Yes. I, very early in my career, was very ambitious and worked like 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, loved to work, and moved up very quickly. I was at Business Week, and then I was Fortune, where I quickly became sort of a cover story machine. And I worked on a great team of people, and I felt valued and beloved and mentored. And everything went so well that Condé Nast, Wired in particular, came to me and offered me their senior writer job. The god of my craft, Stephen Levy, was leaving, and his job was opening up. And he had nominated me for it. And Wired came to me, and they were pretty frank with me, the editors. They said, we really love the idea of having you, and everybody loves working with you, and we don't have any senior women at the top of the masthead, and we just think it would be great to have senior female leadership. And I came in, and I felt pretty good when I arrived. And within a couple of months, it was like pushing a boulder uphill into the wind. None of my ideas resonated with the people who ran the magazine. Let's be graceful through no fault of their own. Their limited ideas about what made good stories. They just shot down every idea I had. And that was a moment when I knew that I was battling something that felt to me like sexism, but my framing for it was this. Well, if they had a woman who was good at this, then you could step back and say, well, that's sexism. But it's me, and I'm probably not very good at this anyway, so it's hard to tell. Is this sexism, or am I to have bad ideas? And what's interesting to me about that is that flip happened so quickly. Like I mentioned before, I was so confident at Fortune. I had years and years of confidence based on a portfolio of work that I believed in. And I got to this new place, and I was working within an environment, a very senior environment, in which I did not have the belief of the institution. And within a few months, I was like, I'm bad at this. I'm the problem. I'm bad at this. And that was a mix of imposter syndrome and flat out sexism, which is something that is alive and well in most of our institutions today. And it took me years to find my way back to a place where I could have the context for that and believe in myself again.
After the break, Leah, Jessi, and Gianna discuss how economic trends have shaped their generation's ambitions around work and parenthood. They also offer advice on imposter syndrome and making a career pivot. We'll be back in just a few moments. And we're back with Leah, Jessi, and Gianna.
Gianna, did you wake up when you were 8 years old and say, I want to be a writer?
No, I wanted to be a teacher for a while.
That tracks. You would be a great
that does
teacher.
really track.
I still think at some
Organized,
point,
productive. Yeah.
I would pursue that career. I have so many careers to pursue.
I know. Open road.
I know. No, the realization that I wanted to be a writer came in high school. I fell in love with writing, I think in middle school, but I always loved to write. I was always the writer in my family. It was always my strong suit. And then I took a journalism class my sophomore year of high school, and it just clicked. I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. Wrote for my school paper, was the editor-in-chief. I was like, I'm pursuing this, with all my heart, and felt very fortunate, like you were saying, Jessi, to have that clarity because it allowed me to be so focused when I was applying to schools. My parents said, you need to be an accountant. Like, you cannot be a journalist. My grandpa, he was like, you need to be an anesthesiologist. I was like, okay, guys, I feel so passionate. I'm going to figure this out. So I applied to study journalism at Syracuse. Always thought I would work in traditional news. I didn't know would I have to go to a random state where I didn't grow up and be a local reporter, or would I land a coveted job at the Wall Street Journal out of school. I didn't know how. I didn't see a middle road, and that's kind of how it was sold to us. And then LinkedIn had a fellowship with Syracuse, fell in love with the team and the work that our team was doing, and ended up becoming a full-time position later on, the fall after I graduated, and have been here since.
Gianna, I have this question as you tell this story. So when I was making those decisions, which was 20 years ago, I said to myself, well, I can be a writer and a journalist as a middle-class kid if I can figure out how to be financially competent. And I think that meant something different for Gen Xers than it means for Gen Z. And I was able to buy my first home by myself when I was in my early 30s. Now, granted, it was 400 square feet, but we could do things like put 10% down, and you could get something for a reasonable cost. It feels to me like that's kind of off the table for your generation. How do you think about what it means to set yourself up well?
I think when I was navigating those decisions, I was pretty naive to even consider how I will make a living off of this profession. I honestly don't think it's something that I thought much about because I just felt so passionate about it and had this maybe naive but unshakable sense of faith that I would figure it out.
Yeah.
And all that's to say, I'm very privileged to be starting at LinkedIn. I think my outlook on that would have been very different had I joined a traditional news org right out of school, living in the New Jersey, New York area. I would have been making significantly less than I am earning working in big tech. So I recognize that privilege. But I think all of the life milestones, it's just this idea of one, there's first marriage and then buying a home and all these things. It's it's harder. It's harder to achieve. And I hope I will be able to one day.
What does it look like for you as a millennial?
I wanted to be a journalism major in school. I was a business major, agricultural business, different conversation. And I tried to change. And my dad was like, no, you won't make any money. And I'm not sending you to college for that. And so I got lucky in the sense that LinkedIn was my first job out of college. So I think as a millennial, it feels, I don't know, it feels I sometimes feel a little bit siloed from other people because I've stayed at the company longer than most of the people I know. I've really put in a lot of years here and a lot of different careers and spun a lot of cycles. And so I imagine that, I'm not planning to leave anytime soon, but if and when I do, that will be a really big wake-up call in the sense of okay, what am I doing and where am I going and what's it really like out here in this world of journalism and or, whatever I do choose to do. I want to change gears a little because we talked about being women in this space and we're all sort of in different places in our lives as it relates to parenting and parenthood. And so I'm curious, I'm curious to get your perspective as we talk about some of this. But Jessi, starting with you, how has parenthood changed you? If you were to give give me the headline, how has it shifted the way you think about your life and your work?
I've become much better at time management.
That was on the list of goals, right?
It was. And I'm still not all that good at it. I got to tell you the truth. For me, first of all, I spent 15 years from the time that I finished college until I was close to 40, being pretty angry at all of the people around me who felt the need to assert their opinions about whether or not I gave birth. With every year, people would feel more entitled and emboldened to be like, well, Leah, what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Gianna, are you thinking about kids? Including like people that I covered in journalism, powerful people. And I'd show up and want to have a conversation with them about like the balance sheet of their company. And they'd end the conversation by being like, what are you thinking about kids? I'd be like, it's none of your business. Then I turned 40. It was freedom, y'all. 40 was freedom. Some people call it invisibility, but that invisibility was welcome. And then shortly after that, my wife came home and said, no, I really think we should have kids. And I thought, oh, what?
That's Plan X.
And then, the intellectual side of me kicked in and said, well, you know what? If she really feels like this is important, my role in life after I've, fulfilled my own obligations to myself is to support her. Let's do it. That was a funny way to approach something that basically cracked me open many times over and changed me. And becoming a parent offered me a path to move out of the main character role in my own life and let somebody else hold the main character role. And that was a really beautiful thing. And this journey of learning to care deeply about what I do and what I contribute outside of my home, and then to care deeply and be invested in these humans that I'm raising, it's like the gift of a lifetime. So...
Gianna, what's this like? I mean, you're in such a different place where people are like, oh, maybe I'm guessing people are asking you or feling like they have. Exactly.
But we don't care.
Yeah.
We don't, like, whatever you do.
Yeah, you do, you girl.
Thanks, guys. No, I honestly do feel like my calling is to be a mom one day, hopefully. But I think back to like when my mom raised us, she was able to step away from the workforce. And I don't think for most people, that's a feasibility. And for me personally, I feel like I am such a career-driven, ambitious person that I don't think I would be able to give that up fully. And, I've heard other people say, and I think the way that people speak so openly about this now just makes me feel so much more safe and feel like, okay, this is possible. Like you can have your career and you can be a mom too. And I think that's so refreshing because I seemed for a long time I had to be one or the other. And I'm very lucky to be surrounded by women like you guys. To hear you and see you be able to do both is just like, okay, I could do that too. And I feel very fortunate for that.
Yeah.
I just want to jump in here and say that I'm married to a woman. My children have the benefit of a stay-at-home mother, and I still get to be a working mom. And we did it when I was much older, which isn't the way that I would plan it. That wasn't my plan A. If I were going to have children, if I knew I were going to have children, I would definitely have had them younger. But the benefit of doing them older, of course, is that we had a little bit of extra money and that I had already established my sort of professional reputation. And all of those are privileges when it comes to raising a child. And you cannot overstate how significant the energy and money and work that goes into raising a family is here in our country of the United States, where there is not a social system to support you in doing it.
Yeah.
No pressure.
Correct, right. It's like, there are certainly privileges that we have, but there are certainly difficulties that we experience. And I feel fortunate. And I also go, oh my gosh, how do people do this? And I've asked that question in total earnestness that I'm like, I don't understand how. And, I'll find out soon enough. But, I think I'm approaching this as like, I just don't know. I just don't know. And I've, similar to you, I'm like, gosh, I don't think it'll ever change me, but it might, and that's okay. And that's sort of when I think about, what it means to have a meaningful life and my association with work, it really can't be tied to a job because things will change. I want to have you all.
No, before you just
Sure.
jump off of I just don't know. Because you've said that in a really beautiful and inviting way several times during this conversation. As you approach this moment in your life, what do you know for sure?
I know that I've always believed I was going to be a mom. Like I didn't know what that would look like. And I kind of always knew like the time I needed, I think I'm a little bit more of a late bloomer. It's like the time I needed to really come into my own was so important, and that kind of had to happen first. And I also know that I've never gotten a win out of resistance.
Yeah.
So like the more I resist things, the worse it gets. And the more I go, okay. And the brain just starts working and figuring things out. And all of a sudden you have this totally new perspective that's open that wasn't there before because you weren't willing to allow it in.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. All right, let's do rapid fire, y'all. I want you to give advice to people listening. So give me like quick answers to these questions. What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about pivoting in their career?
I would say there's a lot of people who will probably have an opinion on the decision to embark on a new career journey. And I think if you feel something so deeply in your gut and you have faith in yourself to believe that you'll be able to figure it out and know that you are bringing so much to the table in whatever career you're pursuing.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say to someone who's experiencing imposter syndrome, Jessi?
I think if you're experiencing imposter syndrome, speak it, name it, and seek support from it. Right? Imposter syndrome is one of the most searched for categories on LinkedIn. A lot of people have ideas around it. And being able to step out of yourself and connect with other people who have been through this experience is the best way to find your way forward.
In the spirit of us being in different generations and different parts in our career, I want us to give each other advice. So Jessi, I'm curious, if you had one piece of advice to give me, what would you give me?
You are playing a long game. The cycles feel really important and you want to make them short. Not you specifically, but any of us do when we're young. But they're not that important. When you step back and look at this next decade of your life, you want to take two things and only two things forward. Doesn't matter what those two things are. So don't worry if like the next year feels a little quiet or a little sluggish in one area or another. Because a decade from now, you will look back and the story will be obvious.
I love that. Gianna, what's one thing you want to tell Jessi?
I would say to continue to embrace your curiosities. I think you ask the smartest questions, and all of us learn so much from you. You know, I'm fortunate to be one of those people. We get to learn so much through your informal mentorship and formal mentorship. And I would, selfishly ask that you continue doing that because your support, I think, directly and indirectly helps many people.
Thank you.
Tears. I didn't expect them. And what I would tell you, you have so many different talents. You are incredibly intelligent. And I also think that you have this like hidden, very real creativity that like sometimes the part of your personality that's like, we got to get these things done and be productive pushes out.
Yeah.
But like I've seen that and I've seen it. I mean, I love to see when you get to bake because I feel like it means so much to you. So like, I mean, my biggest hope for you is just that you keep pursuing the things that make you feel creative and you keep pursuing the things that make you feel curious and just like light you up, because that's the stuff of life to me. So I expect to see you in a year in Italy doing on like some baking show.
Doing the thing.
Thank you all so much for being here. This was so great. I mean, we could talk about 18 million other things together and maybe we will have to, but hearing your perspectives and just getting to sit down with you and share this with people is so meaningful. So thank you for being open to opening the kimono.
I love it. I love it.
Thank you for showing us behind the curtain. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leah.
That was Jessi Hempel, host of LinkedIn's Hello Monday podcast, and Gianna Prudenti, an editor for early career development at LinkedIn.
If you want to hear more career advice from Jessi and Gianna, make sure to check out this week's newsletter. We'll be hearing tips from them, plus a few other expert voices at LinkedIn, on how to find and nurture mentorships at work. Our newsletter publishes every Thursday, and you can find a link in the show notes to subscribe.
Everyday Better is a production of LinkedIn News. The show is hosted by Leah Smart and produced by me, Grace Rubin.
And me, Emily Reeves.
Asaf Gadron is our sound engineer. Tim Boland mixes our show. We get additional support from Alex Kuznetsova and Ali McPherson. Sarah Storm is our senior producer. Dave Pond is head of production and creative operations. Maya Pope-Chappelle is director of content and audience development. Courtney Coop is head of original programming. And Dan Roth is the editor-in-chief of LinkedIn. Thanks for coming with us, and we'll see you next week.